Om Shri Ganeshaya Namo Namah. Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe, wherever you are. It's indeed a great pleasure. Today is a special program which has been brought to you by none other than Mr. Arpit Dugar, the head of the international business Next Education Services based out of Dubai. He took initiative. He discussed with me during my recent visit to Delhi. We both packaged it, and today is his show. I would like to tell the Honorable Union State Minister for Education and External Affairs, sir, we are indebted to you for your valuable presence on 14th of January, when we had the annual convention of our chamber, and our new patron, Padma Bhushan, Professor Jagdish N. Shetji, who was bestowed this award by none other than the Prime Minister of India in United States. And excuse me, besides him, the new president who joined from Singapore, Shri Anil Manocha ji, who is a water management expert doing wonderful for India and world over, including our neighboring countries, what we have in South Asia and Southeast Asia. He's based out of Singapore. The entirely new team, which has come to the chamber, I'm indebted to them, and I'm very deeply indebted my gratitude to the Honorable Minister, who had been very kind to spare some of his time today as well. He told that he would be joining and he'll be a part of this particular program. Arpit ji would be introducing the dignitaries in a little while. Meanwhile, let me just move ahead. The topic is very scintillating and befitting to the occasion. The G20 summit is also going on. India has taken the presidency and education has been given the importance. We all know that 29th of July 2020, the new education policy which has been given and given the green signal by the Honorable Prime Minister, Education Minister, Ministry of HRD has become now Ministry of Education. When we move further from there, what is coming in school education, technical education, higher education, vocational education, then, the digital university coming up and the foreign universities and institutions allowed to come on the shore, UGC on the New Year gift. That is on 1st of July. We all read something new coming on to that. So with that kind of a scenario, and during the pandemic, I don't want to remember 25th of March, 2020, what all happened. We all have suffered quite a bit, quite a lot. We do not want to remember. But I'm grateful to people like Arpit Dugar and all others, including the ASN principal in Delhi. She brought 3,000 principals during that particular pandemic. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to share in a very humble way, we have done 1,600 webinars with the global fraternity ecosystem, and 12,000 new educators are the part of the system now, and we are the humble learner. Today's topic is also something futuristic. Can education technology build leaders of the future? Every day, some new people join us, the program. So I just set the context, and you all should know ICSI, International Chamber for Service Industry. It's in the market research, policy advocacy, innovative strategies, consultancy and training. We are deeply and directly dealing with the non-resident Indians, Indian diaspora, the brothers and sisters, those who have gone abroad. There are 32 million. And out of that, we have taken out the kitty. Those are directly dealing with school education, higher education, technical education, vocational education, IT-based softwares, whatever they are developing in the different countries, in the different valleys. And besides them, we have also taken tourism fraternity together on a common platform. So we are a link between India and over 32 million Indian diaspora abroad. And presently, during the pandemic and post-pandemic, our focus is education, as well as skills and competencies and capabilities. NRIs, brothers and sisters, we are proud of you. You always bring proud to us because, if you see these stats, India has got the maximum FDI during the pandemic and the post-pandemic, and that's the contribution. It's not only the finance alone, in education also, research also, innovation also, technology, mentorship, adopting their villages, helping to do the hand-holding for educators and youth in their villages, in their states, in their union territories, and also the Honorable Prime Minister, when we all visited together with him, we had gone, he made the agenda that non-resident Indian brothers and sisters, why don't you bring 5 tourists with you to India? Can you imagine when you think about it, the foreigners traveling with NRIs India, and that is Dekho Apna Desh as a domestic tourism, and 5 tourists coming with the NRIs, that's an inbound international tourism. There are 3 verticals as far as the GDP is concerned. You've got agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Our chamber is exclusively focusing on services sector. Of course, here are the constituent sectors. It's very difficult for me to have in different slides. There are 92 areas of services sector which our chamber has identified, and we are also giving slippages effects as far as the agro, as far as manufacturing part is concerned. Our chamber is proud. We were the part of, out of those 92 sectors, 12 sectors have been identified by Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India, and there was a concept, the complete roadmap, complete strategy. I'm proud of the joint secretary that time in the ministry, who became later on the additional secretary and then the secretary to Government of India. The document through Mr. Amitabh Kant, the CEO in the Niti Aayog, went all the way to PMO, and the Prime Minister allocated 5,000 crores for these 12 identified sectors under the Government of India, and education and technology are the integral part of these. This is the homepage of our web portal. You can go through. We directly work with the Woodbury University because our past president is from that university, and our chamber always has got non-resident Indians as the presidents. At present, I told you, Mr. Anil Manocha from Singapore. And during the pandemic, we worked very hard. We have come out with the book, which is ebook. It's available on the portal. You can download it from there, Rethinking Tourism Post-Pandemic Times, and that can take care of rest of the videos. You can go in your own time. 1994, when the chamber came into existence, we set up India's first finishing school for service industry, exclusively, where the personality enhancement, communication skills, etiquettes, manners, gesture, body language, whatever you can think of, critical thinking, logical thinking, and of course, no depression, no anxiety, no drugs, nothing of that sort. Total focus on teachers' capacity building and youth empowerment. This was a brick and mortar, complete finishing school being set up in Chandigarh. Now, post-pandemic, it has gone digital because we all have learned from the big corporate houses, there is no fun in having big things on the ground. Now let's have everything in the cloud, and that's the way you have to work on. So during pandemic and post-pandemic, it's the digital inspirational lab which is taking care of entire thing. Now over here, when you talk about digital inspirational lab, the other day also I told the Honorable Minister, sir, the short form is DIL, heart, because DIL ke baare mein sab baat karte hain. So how DIL, that is digital inspirational lab, is helping, particularly in the demographic dividend. Let's empower our youth and educators the best possible way. You got to trigger their curiosity, creativity, imagination, innovation, design thinking, critical thinking, adaptive learning, immersive learning, project-based learning, technology adoption-based learning, exploring and experimental, joyful learning. And of course, you need empathy in education. There are different dimensions. You got to be physically well, mentally well, emotionally well, spiritually well, and at the same time, you got to be economically well, because Sir Ken Robinson, you know, when you remember, Sir Ken Robinson, whenever we used to meet him, the great gentleman, we lost him in the second wave, and he used to tell there are 4 purposes of education: economic, cultural, social, and of course, for every child, personal. This evening, Sunday is more productive for us than other day. Today, this is a special program which is coming, for which we requested the Honorable Minister, sir, to be with us and his team. What we wish to share with you, every Sunday, we hold 3 programs. Early in the morning, 9:30, we have a program directly coming from Woodbury University, Burbank, California. In the evening at 7 o'clock, through the Ayush, we have got Vishwa Kalyan Ke Liye Ayurveda. Today at 7 p.m., you will have digestive system ko theek kaise rakhe, and this goes all the way to our NRI friends. And thereafter, every Sunday 8 p.m. we have got non-resident Indian for Indian education and skills. And today's program is Canada Calling. You will have two of the distinguished guests. They are coming all the way from there. 15th of February, we'll be going to Bangalore, and you will be having a discussion on tourism industry, which will come. And we are starting a new program now on a great demand because India has signed MOU with Japan. 3 lakh youth have to go from India to Japan. And if you're interested, whether you want to go as a yoga teacher, you want to go for the nursing, you want to go as a care worker, or you want to go as an IT professional, we are starting a complimentary program, and that is from 18th of February. Today, Arpit Dugarji has set this context on Sunday, 4 p.m. strategy. So 4 to 5 p.m. every Saturday, you will have a Japanese language and Japanese culture live program being given to you, complimentary, free of cost. And at the end of 6 months, you get a complimentary certificate as well. This was this morning from Woodbury University. What a beautiful musical journey. And that was something very interesting which he gave. He told 4 चीजें थी आज सुबह बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग. संगीत के साथ साहित्य, साहित्य के साथ विद्या और विद्या से आध्यात्म विद्या. That was fantastic from Professor Satyendra Dhiman. Second part we will be holding next Sunday. Last night, although I was traveling, because in Lucknow there is a global investor summit for 3 days, I had flown back. 9 o'clock the flight landed. 9:15 I held the program yesterday. That was tribal youth empowerment. Northeast India is next to my heart. I always think about those children, but of course, tribal population is throughout India. Our Honorable Minister, sir, is also from Manipur, and he wants everything to move ahead the best possible way. So, ladies and gentlemen, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's come together. Let's make education and skills relevant digital way. Today, this morning, we have completed 1,817 webinars during the pandemic, having started on 25th of March, 2020. With these words, let's join me in extending a very warm welcome to our distinguished guests from the different countries, different places, sharing the vision. Can education technology build leaders of the future? And with these words, I will hand you over to Mr. Arpit Dugar to take the discussion forward. But of course, few inputs were given to me by Honorable Minister, sir, Arpitji, which I would like to set as a context for all of you so that we can take on. Education technology trends which are coming. What is going to be the future of e-learning, the flipped classrooms, and self-learning, self-paced learning. And then he also talked about gamification, what all is to be done in that, how to have motivated teachers and motivated learners, how there can be a collaborative learning like it is taking place now, because I've got such a distinguished guest from different places. It's a collaborative learning because teachers are now co-learners. That time has gone when you have the chalk and you have the blackboard and you stand over there. There is only one source where from the light and the information is coming. No, now it's coming from all the places. Recently, we were in Scandinavia. We learned something wonderful. In Denmark, there is no library anymore now. There is only a human library. Anybody who is above the age of 60 years, they come, children are holding their cup of coffee and cup of tea, and they talk their lifetime journey, their stories from the different fields. It's called a human library, the concept. Nature-based learning. If you see the videos of Mr. Satish Kumar, who is 87 years old from Rajasthan, he walked from India to New York. That is amazing. And he was the opening batsman of the UNESCO when the pandemic has struck. And something very interesting, he gave it to all of us. He was walking from India with his backpack with one of his friends to New York. So when he was crossing Leh Ladakh, a lot of motorcycles are there and adventure tours are there. So 2 foreigners, those were on Mobike, they saw 2 Indians walking on the road. And he asked him, "Excuse me, where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to New York." He said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" He says, "I'm going to New York." He says, "Are you going to New York? Where is New York?" He says, "It's in America." He says, "How are you going?" He says, "Both of us, we are traveling. When will you reach over there?" "Maybe in 6 months." Great. He took out his card and gave the visiting card to these two people. And he told him, when you reach New York, please meet me. And ladies and gentlemen, after 6 months, when he reached New York, he gave a call to him and he told, do you remember that I met you in Leh and Ladakh when I was walking and you were on a motorcycle? He says, where are you? He says, just next to your residence in New York. He said, great. And they met over there. Ladies and gentlemen, he's running a wonderful school today, all together a nature-based school. What a wonders he has done on this planet. It's in London. Each one of us, whenever you get time, try and see Satish Kumar, environmental-based education from London. And you will come to know what exactly the human beings can do. And he's just 87 years young. Then, of course, self-paced learning. Dr. Sugata Mitra's experiment, Honorable Minister is very fond of, that is a hole in the wall. He says, do we really require teachers? Why not children can learn at their own pace? Teachers and students are the co-learners. Teachers as mentors. How the augmented reality and the virtual reality and artificial intelligence is going to shape the education in future. And of course, concern of the Honorable Minister is that technology, would it not bring always a social conflict and divide the society, bring inequality, because we cannot give same bandwidth to everybody. What you're getting in Delhi, you cannot give at Lumla and Boomla. That is the last town when I go beyond Tawang and you see all those areas, whether I'm in Longding or I'm in Waka or I'm in Punctua, you cannot give that. So how to remove that digital divide? With this context, I would request Arpit Duggarji to take on this session, and I extend a very warm welcome to all my distinguished guests, friends, brothers and sisters, children, whatsoever, wherever you are, let's take on this journey together. If you've got any questions, you can post it on the YouTube. If you want now, if the time will allow, we'll take on, or later on, we can take on with Arpit Duggarji with his team. I hand you over now to take on this session forward.
Thank you so much, Gulshan sir, and a very warm welcome to all the panelists. We're literally amazed to see the work ICSI has been doing continuously. Last 3 years, I have been an ardent follower of ICSI and the sessions that sir has been doing. They are not just thought-provoking, but you get to connect with such set of people wherein entirely new insights about a particular perspective comes into role. So it's really interesting. Thank you so much, sir. And once again, thank you everyone here on the panel, right from Akshal to Priya, Charul, Chitra, Dr. Aarti, Sapna ma'am, everyone who has taken out time to discuss on this very important aspect which the whole world is currently facing. And a question gets thrown to the audience, whether EdTech can change the whole spectrum, whether EdTech can prepare the leaders of future. What are the challenges that we are looking at? Unfortunately, in today's panel, the experts that we have are from various fields, right from somebody talking about a nature-based sustainable curriculum, the demands that are there, the challenges and the future challenges and the risks, the way it can be mitigated by bringing in some changes in the curriculum. We have Priya from Life Vitae, who's going to extensively talk about how life skills and passions are important and how AI-based platforms can help achieving that and across the different segments of the society. We do have Dr. Sapna Agarwal with us, who's a prodigy in teacher trainings and empowerment. We will talk more about her work when I introduce her properly. Then we have Chitra from Nikon's photography and filmmaking. As to add up, like as sir just mentioned, that there is one big concern about the digital divide and the social divide that technology may create. So how well to bridge it with hands-on activities and experiences and that social connect. We will talk about how photography and filmmaking courses in education can bridge that gap. We do have Charul with us, who's an amazing a woman entrepreneur here in Middle East. And not just that, she's, if I have to speak about Charu, she's a multiple award winner. She's an international keynote speaker, a published author. She's winner of Mrs. UAE International 2021, a great inspiration and a great friend of mine, who will add up to the value of how wellness and willingness is important for even to drive any EdTech solution or any program in a school ecosystem. We have Dr. Aarti with us. Above all of these efforts, there has to be a layer of supervision, audits, and standardization. So we'll have Dr. Aarti speaking about it. So a very warm welcome to all the panelists today. I extend warm greetings on behalf of ICSI. And let me open this agenda by just giving us a glimpse and a few highlights about as to what currently EdTech is facing, what are the challenges, and what we are trying to do in terms of looking at EdTech in the coming time. Right? So just to start with that, pandemic has actually exposed the schools across the school systems, ecosystems across the globe as to what kind of challenges can be there if there are no physical spaces. Now, because of that, a variety of services mushroomed to provide different facilities to the EdTech sector, to kind of giving it a holistic environment. So the whole world started to think about what is this holistic development. And when we say about holistic development, is it only a child-centric approach, or is it a teacher-centric approach, or it is all stakeholders getting involved, building a community, building wellness around it, all dimensions of wellness, bringing in technology. So holistic has a lot of dimensions around it. Now, the biggest challenge that EdTech platforms currently are facing is that there is still not a platform which is yet providing a 360-degree scan of a child's performance, child's aura, and not just child, teachers and the other stakeholders as well. So on that note, what kind of challenges we foresee? One of the biggest ones, which United Nations also mentioned, are the challenges related with deteriorating environment. Now on that, a nature-friendly, a sustainable curriculum is a prime requirement. And on that, I think we have with us Mr. Akshal Agarwal, who is the co-founder of Nature Nurture, has got an extensive experience of 7 years working in this field. He's a graduate from one of the prestigious institutions of the country, ISB Hyderabad, to speak about how what was the idea of Nature Nurture when it was incepted, and how a curriculum like Nature Nurture support the sustainable curriculum and green curriculum and mitigate those challenges. Akshal.
Thank you, Arpit, and thank you, Dr. Gulshan. Some of the wonderful work that ICSI has been doing, I got to know through this session, and it's wonderful that Arpit invited me for this opportunity. So as a whole, as the name suggests, Nature Nurture, and the topic is sustainability, it might be misleading to think that that's all it's about. Nature Nurture, when it was originally conceived, we had this philosophy in mind that there are two things that shape a child's life. Something that the child is born with, that's your nature, and something that can be nurtured. And that is how the fundamental philosophies of child development grow. And that is what the thought process was in 2012 when the company was founded. Over the last 10 years, as we have engaged with over 350 schools and over 1 lakh children, the world has changed quite rapidly. And there has been the climate change, which is on an excessive rampant rage. We have seen more climate-related disasters in the last 5 years than ever before. We have seen the need for science-dominated innovation in the world as a mandate for our society to survive. And the current generation, the ones that are in school, is the first generation whose entire adult life may be an existential threat because of climate change, something that all of the others who are in the frame today or who are in the attendance today never had to fear, right? And with that comes the onus on the current generation to be able to actually drive those solutions which will change the world. So in that larger context, when the stakes are so high for our children, we follow a very, very structured learning outcome-driven process to actually realign what we do in schools every day. if we were to have it our way, as some of the schools close to Stanford University and Palo Alto have already started doing, is that they have completely done away with subjects like English, Hindi, and maths in favor of design and technology, sustainability, them becoming the fundamental building blocks from kindergarten. And that is the core school curriculum. While that may be a little while away from implementation in school, because as a society, we may not accept that, there is a wonderful theory by Carol Dweck, which has been propounded to use in this situation, is that instead of trying for a revolutionary change in the learning outcomes, we slowly remove the redundant learning outcomes and keep adding these new domains of sustainability and technology. For instance, we say that a kindergartner is expected to write 1 to 105 different cursive languages for God knows what reason. We remove some of that burden and keep adding some sustainable STEM elements into it. Right. So that is the broader approach that we have followed at Nature Nurture, that at the beginning of the year, whenever the child is coming to school, we will broadly identify what learning outcomes have to be achieved for the entire 365 days. And when I say learning outcomes, each and every one learning outcome is a SMART learning outcome, which means it is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And all of these 365 learning outcomes are inspired from whatever is happening across the world, including India. So 60 to 70% of the learning outcomes will be what were there 20 years ago in terms of language, numeracy. That is where bulk of the parents, especially in the rural parts of the country, are more inclined to agree towards. However, 30% of the learning outcomes is where the parents have to and the schools have to hold our hand. We use analogies like, you have now moved from a landline phone to an Apple phone. Right? The functionalities of the phone are similar, but 30% of those learning outcomes have to be completely open. And for that, the innovation that we use inside the classroom is, because large part of the resources in the Indian context for financial literacy, for design and technology, and for sustainability are largely non-existent. We have had to create our own resources. And while creating those resources, we keep in mind the demography of each and every school. So as Major Saab had pointed out, that our concern is less about the best of cities where the children are likely to find a way. In the remotest part of the country, we have to be aware of their context, which is why the program that we prescribe for a city and for a small town at the outskirts of Baramulla in Jammu and Kashmir, which is severely hindered by terrorism, severely hindered by activities such as writing and even internet access, even their ability to deliver the program is very similar. Henceforth, as a whole, to summarize, 60% of the program is from the past, 30% is innovation from across the world, and 10% of it is local configuration. So if there are 350 schools pan-India running my program, there will be over 100 different versions of it to suit everyone's demography. Right? So we prescribe the learning outcomes, we create the resources, and then we spend around 150 hours with each and every teacher to capacity build them. Again, a problem which is exacerbated in the remotest part of the country is that they may have done their education from a distance B.Ed course, or teaching may be a part-time addition to their income in several families, and they may have severely limited working hours, which is the harsh reality. So all we expect from our teachers in terms of capacity building to have a working knowledge of English. And then when I say working knowledge, their pronunciation may not be appropriate, their diction may not be appropriate, but they have a basic willingness to learn. In the pandemic, we added a layer of a certain basic familiarity with technology. But even if that wasn't achieved, we developed a pedagogy and technology program, so that through that 150 hours, that capacity building is done. So you prescribe the learning outcomes, you give them the resources, you give them the capacity training, and then we conduct assessments for the child on a daily basis, what's happening, and for the educator, whether the educator is delivering in this class or not. So largely in the context of mostly private schools, this has worked really well, because private schools tend to have better resources than some of the public schools, even though the public schools are catching up really fast. But in the context of the public schools now, with the beautiful policy called NEP coming into place, which is really aimed at the public schools, and Major Saab will agree here, is that the private schools will always be the outlier in policy making at one end of the spectrum. When the government is prescribing policy, that they prescribe policy for Bharat. And when you look at the new education policy, with some of the focus on domains like STEM and on building of the foundational numeracy and literacy, the interesting insight that we take from them, and for that we are developing some public programs also, is that why do our children not excel in science domains when they reach 9th or 10th grade? It is not because they lack the scientific temper or attitude. It's because they struggle to interpret the language in which the sciences are written. Which is why for our public schools, we have incorporated a new module called STREAM. It is an element of R, which is reading and writing, within our science, technology, engineering, maths, and arts, wherein right from kindergarten, we opt for a very, very project-based learning approach. And I'll give you an example of that. Just this week, we had a terrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria, which rocked the entire world. And it is very, very important for our children to be aware about it. But if I were to ask you about how do we integrate it in a school curriculum, particularly from kindergarten to 5, it may be a difficult task for a teacher who already has her hands full to be able to do that. So for that scenario, we publish problem-based case studies for children to work upon. So our case study was, there is a small hospital district in the middle of Turkey, wherein all power supply has been cut off, and all the researchers have to, and the emergency staff has to walk in, and they have to find and rescue people underneath the rubble. Your task as a second grader or a third grader, some schools, is to find a way to generate power sustainably, is to find a way to give them water for their efforts, and find a way to communicate with those kids who are underneath the rubble. And we give them few thinking prompts that gets them rolling. But once we give that, 2 weeks in, the children come up with such brilliant ideas, which can actually be published for the governments to even consider, because, the out of the box ideas come from the other way around. In fact, we ran this experiment in one of our classrooms, just to, towards, as I wind up my time, and to elaborate, we ran this experiment in the classroom, wherein to a bunch of kindergartners, we showed a picture of a shoe, and we asked them, what can you use it for? And we came up with 91 responses. We asked the same question to a 10th grader, and we came up with 27 responses. And I asked the same question in my office, bunch of very smart people who I like to believe, we came up with 5 answers. And that too, including beating your spouses with it. I don't know whether we condone it or not. So what the science says that creativity is an inverse function of time. So let those project-based learning approaches be invigorated into the kids right from kindergarten. And sustainability is not a separate subject, it's intrinsically linked into all of the other domains we do. So if, for example, if you are doing the water theme in the classroom, right, it is linked to what we are doing in maths, where we are learning about how much rainwater can we measure and how we can conserve it. If we are doing it in transport, we are learning how do we move around when it's raining outside. If we are doing it in science, we are learning how water is important for the different soil elements. So the children are able to internalize it, that learning outcomes of sustainability are clearly identified within the broader theme of what the goal for the children is. And once we report it at the end of the year, when we are assessing it, it really produces magic. One of the great reasons I wanted to be a part of it is that we always, part of this session is that our program usually has been a great fit for private schools. However, with the new education policy, and in particular the National Curriculum Framework of 2022 coming in, we see so much of the language that we want to push for private schools actually being embraced by the public sector. And I think when organizations like ours, which are represented in this frame, try to work closely, I think there is much more willingness on the part of the public schools to embrace that change, because they don't have any financial motives to actually adopt or deter something, right? As long as it's good for the children, it is within their budget, they will embrace it. So I think that's a wonderful opportunity. We work through different parts in the value chain, but broadly my takeaway would be, whenever we want to do anything for the children, we formulate a smart learning outcomes document. And although, the government, we really advertise that our GDP target is 6%. And as Major Shah had also pointed out, that sometimes those targets of GDP spending are achieved through infrastructure spending on schools. If we were to isolate the infra spend and the non-infra spend, the picture would be very different. So in that context, we evaluate that building schools will not help. The best schools, as Sir pointed out, in London will be ones without any campuses at all. So that is also my plea to the relevant stakeholders, that you have the right partners on board. We will try to ensure that we don't need the fancy buildings to deliver our outcomes. We just need your time, and all children have the aspirations and they deserve to do well, and I'm sure they will do well. It's been a pleasure to be part of this session. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Akshal. Thank you so much for some amazing insights. And some of the keywords which I could pick while you were speaking, and we have some stalwarts in the session to even elaborate and collaborate on top of it. For example, capacity building. So I would also want Dr. Sapna ma'am to add on that once I come to you, ma'am. Even talking about some smart learning outcomes. So Sarthi Pedagogy and iBig Wonder is doing some amazing work on that note. One prime thing which I actually could gaze is about the willingness of all the stakeholders, which is real important. Willingness, and I believe wellness associated with that. And as you said, sustainability is an integral part of all the curriculum specification. So it's not an isolated affair. Is something which is a good takeaway for the complete value chain to be built around this ecosystem. So moving ahead, what I would want Priya to add is, Priya, let me just give a brief introduction to all our audience once again. Priya Singh Gupta is the CEO and founder of EdTech platform called LifeVite. She has extensive corporate experience in India and Singapore. She has worked in the tertiary education sector, having taught finance at various MBA institutes. She has held honorary positions on the admissions panel of various prestigious educational institutes in India and Singapore. She has completed her master's in mathematics from IIT Kharagpur. I think this is something which is breaking many cliches and norms. Girls don't do well in mathematics, and here we have a master in mathematics from IIT Kharagpur and her MBA in finance from IIM Lucknow. Priya, I would warmly welcome you to the panel and would like you to add how difficult it is to capture the interests, skills, passions, and understand what a child wants to do without EdTech, and how EdTech is transforming it. And what do you see that without EdTech, can it ever be achieved?
Thank you, Arpit, for those kind words. And thank you, first of all, Arpit, to include me in this panel, and a very warm appreciation and word of thanks to Major Dr. Gulshan Sharma Sahab for, setting up this forum where we could come up and discuss ideas, but also at a greater scale for the work that you're doing, and also taking time to share that with us. Thank you again, Major Saab, and thank you, Arpit. So now to answer your question, Arpit, I would request to take the panel back a step and roughly discuss what are the challenges that EdTech companies are faced with. As Major Saab very rightly said at the beginning of this discussion, that during COVID, there were a lot of, EdTech initiatives that came into the market. And as Arpit added to that, that there were a lot of big and small companies which came up during this whole COVID sort of intervention, if I may use that word, on our universe. Right, thanks. So I will just look at what the EdTech companies need to do, or what the EdTech companies would or should be looking at. Right, thanks. So here we've just compiled a little presentation where we have tried to capture all points where all my distinguished colleagues here on this panel would agree to a certain extent. As Dr. Sharma and Arpit both agreed upon that, there are a lot of EdTech companies now. With power comes responsibility. And because these edtech companies are operating in the market, it is our responsibility to address some of these issues that I have put it up on the presentation here today. So one of those issues is remove barriers to access for students. Now, those barriers could be language barriers, as the NEP talks about. Those barriers are device and connectivity barriers. Life in itself is an edtech platform, and we are different from the other edtech players in that we democratize our solutions. By democratizing our solutions, what I mean is that we don't just provide our solutions for the niche, the blue chip schools of the metro cities, but we also go all the way into rural area schools, semi-urban schools definitely, and rural area schools. So now once we go into those rural areas, device becomes an issue. Many households don't have multiple devices, if at all a single device. Many of those households grapple with connectivity issues. So then the question arises of being able to offer our services at minimum bandwidth so that our end user is able to access that. And that, I think, is the primary responsibility for edtech companies today. The second is cutting through the clutter. Now, we all know with Google, with all the other search engines, nothing that we say is rocket science. Kids nowadays know a lot more. Sometimes they know more than their teachers, especially in the rural areas. We see that they know way more than the teachers. So what is the job of a teacher then? The job of a teacher is essentially to gather all that information and give it to the student ahead of their kind of going and searching for it, and in a concise and understandable manner. Now, edtech companies should come in and cut through that clutter of reducing that feeling of overwhelming for the students, to reduce that anxiety of information overload because of the humongous amount of content that is being generated. The third is affordability, and this is one of my favorite topics because of the fact that we have democratized education counseling across the region. Is that one of the key costs to affordability is that the courses are, not bite-sized, or the courses are so huge that obviously the costs add up. Now, once you reduce the size of the courses, you make them bite-sized, you're automatically reducing the cost price for that course, and the child may be in a position to access that. The second is there are a lot of scholarships and grants available for children, but do they know about it? And when we operate in the rural and semi-urban markets, many a time that answer is no. The government does a lot, but to make it accessible to students, to make them aware of the things that are available to them, is in itself a challenge. And I think edtech companies very rightly should take on that responsibility of addressing this challenge. The third, in the context of affordability, is microfinancing. Of course, it is a new concept in the world of education, in the realm of education, and many companies are coming in to break down the costs for students so that they have EMIs, they have other microfinancing avenues to fund their educational needs. Now, the fourth, again, very important context, and Akshal touched upon this before me, is what is the need to have so many people in STEM subjects? Why is there such a huge bias towards STEM? And that is all because of the employability question mark for social sciences subjects. I mean, yes, you can, people like us can speak from rooftops saying no, more people for more people for social sciences. There are too many engineers coming out of India, for example, and do all of them have jobs? But the underlying question is that unless we make a social science graduate or a person coming out of humanities stream employable, why will that shift happen? Everybody will, of course, want to go into these courses which give them that lure of employability or that promise of employability. Whether or not they can convert it in their own case is a different question. But this entire lopsidedness of graduates and degrees going towards more in engineering, you will see in every market there is a huge bias of STEM graduates or engineering graduates, and then they struggle for jobs, and then they are doing jobs that are completely unrelated to their field of training. And that, again, that onus lies with edtech companies. If we, as edtech company, CEOs and founders, if we give that information out to students early on, like we do at Life Vitae, that what are the things that they can do and excel at once they pursue a humanities degree, or once they pursue a social science degree, and how employable they will be, there will be that gradual shift. The fifth point that I love talking about is personalization. It's local for local. Back in the day when I was a student at IIM, we used to do a lot of case studies on, foreign companies like IKEA. Even never having been to any of the Scandinavian nations, we would be furiously fighting with each other in class, discussing IKEA strategy. But all that has changed. People want to talk about local things. Students want to discuss what is happening here and now in their market. They don't want to talk about something that Croatia is, a company in Croatia is facing. They want to understand in their local context. Learning has become very local in that context. Contextualization has become so important, and edtech companies therefore have that mandate on their plate. And lastly, but not the least, the knowledge of skills. Back in the day when we were in IIT, we used to study about know-how. We studied about how to run a computer. My math project was about finding out the distance between Earth and the sun, and how to put a vehicle from the earth to the sun, etc., etc. Now it's skills. Now it's the knowledge of skills. And how do you understand skills? What is it that everybody keeps talking about skills? Oh, the skill-based learning, this is the future. But we at Life Vitae provide that codification filter that is required. It is easy for us to tell a student that, learning is skill-based, go for skills, but every student is different. We at Life Vitae help a student understand what their skill set is. We look at their specific life experiences, be it their passions, be it their interests, be it their achievements, and we codify all of that to come up with the life skills that they possess. Because the average lifespan of careers nowadays has become less than 5 years. People may graduate in a particular degree or graduate in a particular field, but more often than not, people change over, and there is no reason or there is no push for them to change over. They just change over. I have youngsters all around us because of the nature of work that we pursue. And when I ask them that, why do you want a career change? Is there a bad boss? And they just say, no, I'm bored. And I say that, are you not doing well? And they say, no, I'm doing fabulously, but I want to do something else. And why is that? Because of the way the world is moving. And for that, what do? Do they go back to school again and learn everything over? That is going to become very expensive. So then in that scenario, what do? They understand what their transferable skills are. What are the skills which made them a good fit in the career that they are now, and what will make them a good fit in the career that they are trying to move into. Now, taking all of this together, putting it in context, the most important part is making education fun. And that bit of gamification, making a child enjoy that platform is at the crux of the problem that edtech companies are out to solve. We at Lifeite also have a completely gamified version of the platform because, as Major Dr. Saab has said, we are a Singapore incorporated company, and the Singapore government funded us so that we could get a New Zealand company to look into the gamification aspect, which is what keeps the children or the users engaged on our platform, because given the reducing attention span in today's day and age, and given the plethora of devices and distractions that any regular child faces, it is very important to build that fun in, to move away from the rote-based, grade-centric learning to the experiential and fun way of retaining. Right, thanks. So the problem at Lifeite that we try to solve is, as you may have understood by now, that Lifeite is a product-based approach to career counseling, based on AI and ML, taking into account not just the students' grades, but also the whole spectrum of the students' interests, experiences, passions, and achievements as they have gone through their life journey. So the problem that we solve is therefore to tackle that explosion of information, to curate some of that information and customize it to a particular student's needs based on their skill set. So we identify a student's skill set, and then we tell them the kind of careers, the kind of higher education learning pathways that are matched to them. And then we go on to discuss what they can do to achieve success in that. So it may be which colleges that they can go to, which countries they can explore, which scholarships and grants they can avail to go to these countries or to go to these colleges, what are the internship opportunities or volunteering opportunities that are available to them, all the way in trying to build their skills and telling them early on that what their skills are. I have gone to villages, I've gone to smaller cities where the mothers have come and told me that by the time we go into a career counseling discussion, it's so late, हमें तो पता ही नहीं था कि ऐसा भी हो सकता था. If we start early at Lifeite, we start at the age of 13, where a child's slate is still quite blank, where the child can make those changes, can bring about those interventions if they are told about it early. And that is the entire perspective of Lifeite. So in doing so, we also solve for the conscious challenge.
I would like to add a small excerpt here from a school. I was just looking at a particular project. So I was speaking with a teacher as to how do you tackle this particular problem of understanding the individual requirements and personalization.
Yes.
And to my surprise, so she said, she was a science teacher. She said that once we understand how students are performing in a particular concept, then we start creating certain exercises or questions based on their aptitude. But then I said, somebody who's not even interested in that concept, what do you do with that? You are still bombarding that particular child with certain set of questions or exercises to be performing the same. So that's a very tricky situation. And I think all the whole teaching, I would say that the whole band of teachers, they face this problem because they have confused personalization and individual requirements with a difficulty level of that particular concept.
You're very right, Arpit, because sorry, you were saying, I just came in before, because it's a concept that we are very excited about, because that's where we bring in AI and ML, because nowadays a child speaks much more freely to a machine than they speak to human beings, to their teachers. The first top 20% of the class speaks to their teachers, and they are very, very easy to guide. But we deal with the rest of the 80% of the class who are shy, who are reclused, who are unsure of themselves, they are followers, they need to be brought out. They need to be given that idea of self-worth, of well-being, of to be saying that everything will be all right. You are great. You are a winner yourself. It doesn't matter that your grades are not in the top 20% of the class. And that is the most the biggest problem that we solve at LifeVitae. You have seen my biodata. You read out, Arpit, that I'm from IIT, I'm from IIM, I'm a maths postgraduate, I'm a finance postgraduate, but I failed in math in grade 5. And for me to turn around, and that was a reality too. I failed in my final exam in mathematics in school when I was in grade 5. For me to turn around from there was a function of lot of ifs and buts. Today at LifeVitae, we are solving for those ifs and buts using AI and technology so that a child is, has somebody available to them 24/7. That person is listening to them in a non-judgmental manner, in a unbiased manner completely, and giving them a solution which is a winner of a solution. Is not telling that tumse to kuch bhi nahi hoga because tumhara to koi grades dekho, tum apne marks dekho, which were things that were told to me and are told to a lot of people growing up. So that is the problem that we solve using technology, using AI. And we do that by providing these teachers that you speak with, Arpit, with a tool that they can use this and they can draw out those kids and give them those winner strategies that every child is a winner. Every child can excel. Right. Thanks.
Absolutely.
So this was essentially, so at LifeVitae, as I was saying, we are a product-based approach. We suggest higher education as well as career pathways for a child based on this skill set. We start early. We tell them, these are your skills and these are your developing skills, meaning we don't tell them that you're really bad in that. We tell them these are your developing skills. You can become good. We also give them strategies. Based on AI and ML, that these are the strategies that if you use, you can become better in this, so that they have time. It's not the nth hour. It's not in grade 11th that a child is being said that आपको तो debate करना चाहिए था, फिर आप इसमें अच्छा करते, कहाँ से करते? अब the whole time has gone. If you're telling a grade 8 child कि आप debate में घुसो, that change, that level of change that you can bring about in a child's life is way more than if you're telling a child in grade 12 in retrospective effect कि आपको ये कर लेना चाहिए था. वो क्या करता? I mean, you can't turn back the clock, right? And that is what LifeVitae does. We help students become aware of their core transferable skills in the context of future of work, moving away from the notion that grades are everything. आपका ये grade है तो भाई आप इसमें stereotyped हो गए हो, you are typecasted into this. That is not our end game, sir, right? So this was in a nutshell what LifeVitae does. Maybe more later after all the panelists have been introduced. I don't want to hog too much time, and I would love to listen to my other colleagues here on this panel. So over to you back again.
This contributed a lot, made a lot of sense, and in fact, on personalization, and before I move to Arya to add experience to this personalization. So Chitra would add more on top of this, but I was just looking at, I was just going through one case study done in a school. It was about giving a project, a collaborative project to a number of students together, and then understanding what each child is doing and what exactly they are excelling or they are taking their hands off from. So by giving a project, we are able to identify who are the ones who are keenly interested in investigation, who are the ones who do a proper documentation, who are the ones who are good at design, who are the ones who are assembling models, who are good at hands-on activities and creating stuff, who are the ones who do good presentations from there, who are the ones who are who are good critics, they just analyze. Then there will be few students amongst them who are good motivators. They by themselves may or may not work, but their aura around the other team motivates the whole team to accomplish the task. Then there will be certain one who are least interested, who don't care, who are the disturbance creators in that project. So if somehow these, our ownership on edtech platforms, if we are able to bring this out to the teachers, to the mentors, about what's the exact interest area of students when we are actually dealing about smart learning outcomes, or the way Akshal was mentioning it, I think it will collaborate more to it. And on top of this, I would now request Arya to join us, Chitra to join us. So Chitra is a torchbearer for Nikon's Photography and Filmmaking Kids Club in the Middle East. She's the head of operations, and she has done an extensively incredible job in this territory in terms of bringing photography and filmmaking and relate to schools and relating the whole experience with the curriculum. So Chitra, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Arpit. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Good afternoon. And it's such a bright, I would say, panel that I have. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to share my virtual screen with all of you. To begin with, I actually, the program that we have in Middle East and Africa is such a, I would say, seamless program that I think any one of you can incorporate. Because when we talk about photography, it can foster hope, it fosters creativity, it fosters action, and then it fosters change. And when we always, there's a word called media. Now, media has this 4, I would say, context. That's the main 4 categories. It's always been image, it's always been video, audio, and text has been always been the popular source of getting the knowledge. With photography and filmmaking, we are exploring the image and the video aspect of learning, applying, and going towards their educational journey, because our program is not a replacement of learning. In fact, it adds more to the learning. How do you teach a child about sustainability? How do you teach a child about awareness? So that's where the power of a picture, a video comes into play. So allow me to share my screen. Now, when we talk about Nikon Kids Photo Club, the program started 8 years ago. It's a simple program where we have incorporated photography and filmmaking in a very simple curriculum. We run as an after-school program. We also run as a during the school hours, like we are embedded in their curriculum. I have heard a lot of panelists talking about exposure at the right time, and that's so true. How do you ensure, or how do you decide that this is what my calling is? You need to expose a child with those set of skills, or I would say hobbies, to choose from. How does a child decide that, no, I don't like filmmaking, or I like art, or I like writing, I like public speaking? How do they understand that? Because they need to be aware of those programs at a very early age. I've seen in Ministry of Education Dubai, mostly in UAE, they have taken a step ahead, which I feel that India would catch up, because they understood that. So here they have a very strict, I would say, guidelines for a school to function. A school should have a diverse set of after-school program. For a school to get a good rating, they need to have a wellness program. They need to have a very diverse front of ECAs. Not only sports, they ensure art. In fact, in a lot of after-school program, there is sewing and knitting in a lot of British schools. So I know that when you expose a child at a young age with a program like Nikon Kids, where photography and filmmaking is a part of an option, you give them that right skill set or tool set that, yes, eventually I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a photographer. I want to be a national Nat Geo geographic photographer, or this is what my calling is. I'm going to work on conservation areas. I'm going to work on this concept. So that's where photography has been brilliantly working towards for us. Our program is very simple. Now, in fact, we are entering campus. We are installing Nikon Room. We call it like a content creators hub, where everything to do with media and communication comes into play. They have a room that they can dedicate for going live, interviewing dignitaries, creating something for their project, because anything in education system, they need to submit a project. How do you work towards that? There's always been a channel of documenting it. When you talk about documenting, photography and videos are the key elements. Once you empower a child with how do you document that aspect, that's come into play. So that's where our Nikon rooms have been very popular. We are in one of the best schools in UAE, and they are ensuring it. But then if the school doesn't have the space, we ensure that put up a Nikon Wall of Fame, where the child has taken pictures. We make sure that their pictures are encouraged. They are encouraged to kind of work towards some cause, because photography is not only about taking pictures, it's about enhancing or maybe giving them that perspective. Photography gives perspective to children at a very young age, because that's what, when you document a photograph, you stamp your likes, your dislike. I love this picture. I don't like this thing happening in the world. How do you ensure, how do you make a child aware that you have a say, that you need to, your words matter. A photograph can change the world. And we've seen that happening across our history. And how do you document history? How do you document history for the future generation? It's images, it's the videos, and that's kind of carrying our heritage, our lineage. And that's where I feel empowering a child with photography is a brilliant aspect of making sure that they are locally grounded, they are globally grounded, and they are internationally grounded. Because when you talk about photography, it has a lot of genres, a lot of perspective that a child can work towards. This is a normal scenario of a classroom where we make sure that the child come and learn something about is We work with Autism Center. We work with people of determination. So I know that it is a way of expressing themselves, because when you talk about people of determination, photographic memory or photograph is a brilliant way of expressing themselves. They remember everything by an image. They have a perception in their mind. So teaching them photography also enhances their view of expressing themselves. And something that I would believe all of you will agree, that now the educators who are building up portfolios of the student have realized that fact that the child needs to be all-rounded. It's not only about education or the grades, they need to have a certain skill set. And that's where our program is being popularly accepted by universities, where to build up their portfolio, they have a Nikon session in their portfolio. It's a brilliant way of exploring, making a child aware about their surroundings. We can make sure that they have local excursion trips to the iconic places. And how do you make that boring fort interesting? Give them a project. Tell them that cover you are a journalist today. You get to be a journalist. Document a short video talking about your experience, and that kind of excites them, because we all know that they need to learn something. We all know that we need to make that.
I have a personal experience to add here, which perhaps will be enjoyed by our audience. We went to this North India trip, a bike and a car trip, and we were there in Kaza and this Spiti Valley, Lahore and Spiti Valley. Out of 11 of us, 8 had fallen sick. So we were there at the Kaza, the government hospital, and 8 of them were having some nausea and vomit, and there were multiple issues happening with them. 3 of us were standing out, and we were actually quite stressed up because of the whole situation. But then all of a sudden, my friend took out his camera, and that time I am talking about 2007. So we had those VGA camera outputs, a very old kind of phone Reliance had launched. So he just took out that camera, and I acted as a journalist for a while, and I just reported the whole scene that we have traveled from that place to this place, and 8 of my friends are inside right now. Doctors are facing them, and I think for next 15-20 minutes, all our stress had gone away. And when we showcased that video and when we were taking that camera inside, we could see smiles at all of our colleagues, friends, otherwise who were very stressed up because of the situations that we were in. So I could immediately relate to what you were trying to say. And I believe, photography and filmmaking is one skill. When we say EdTech platform and this whole transformation and a holistic journey, at the end, it dwells down to presentation and your involvement in a particular, concept or a situation, which the skill perhaps will add a lot. Over to you.
Yeah.
Sorry for bringing something in between.
In fact, you're rightly saying that, because when photography is actually a therapy also, it kind of gets you out of repression, because it's a very brilliant, I would say, hobby. Because even if you are in a group, even if you go in a group as a group of photographers, it is still a very individual journey. So I always believe that photographers are very they are loners, but then in a way they are together also, because when we travel as a group, we discuss our pictures, but then at the end our journey is very individual. And when we ensure the photography to children, they come together to learn something, and they discuss their ideas, they make sure that they authenticate their views. Because in this when you learn photography, the one thing that you need to understand, that a child have to become an extrovert. That is the first skill you have to kind of overcome. So you need to talk about your work and your picture, and how do you teach a child to speak about his work. You give him a picture, ask him to share his view. He will talk. He will say, even if it's not in a proper manner, but then he can actually bullet it down to his thought process. And that's what photography empowers. And it's not a program for one or two. I believe it is a program for everybody. Everybody should be exposed, because at the end, it boils down to a lot of their career paths, because everything now is photography related. You talk about digital e-com, sustainability. How do you document that? How do anybody document that we have done this? Any one of you have to show pictures. You have to show a video. And that's where, if you know it right, if you're doing it right, why is such a bad thing to learn it, to do it right? And that's where we come into play. There's something, and I'm sure doctor would be really, really happy. This is what we did in 21-22. And I know that the program is is accepted in schools with students who are blessed to have a foundation. But then to the students who don't have a structure, because when pandemic hit, these are the students of low income household, where the parents were the laborers, they were workers, they were household workers. Those children were the ones who were affected the most. I was in India. I was stuck up in India because of the travel consultation towards UAE, and then I started this online Zoom workshop. We were doing it for Nikon School from around the for the MENA region, but then TAP was the apprentice project. That's where we tied up with them for those months, teaching the low income students photography. But then there we did not focus on the camera. We just focused on any photography device that they had. Because normally when we talk about with the camera, we ensure that it should be a camera. But then the year we were focusing on the composition settings or their thought process. Go out, everything is beautiful, everything is picture worthy. We were explaining to them is everything is gorgeous because beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. So if you see the world, how you see the world in a positive manner, everything is picture worthy. And that's where the program went really, really popular. I had so many students sending me WhatsApp images of their work. And those are the children who could not attend school, even online school for that matter. They were deprived of that online school program because their school didn't have the provision of making their curriculum online. So that's what we want to work on that. And it's something that I can ensure you, if you have a project, if you have an initiative like this and you want to work with us, let me add this: our program is free of cost. We don't charge anything when it comes to working with the CSR activity. So there's something that we can ensure you, if it's for a CSR program, we will do it for free. And because they are the students, I believe we need to kind of ensure and reach out to, because I heard doctors saying that I don't worry about Delhi. Even I'm from Uttaranchal, my hometown is Uttaranchal, my parents are from Uttaranchal, and I know that I want to go out to the remotest area of my hometown and ensure that the child has some kind of skill set. Because right now, I'm a biomedical engineer, but my day job is I'm a head of operations for Nikon School. So I know that anything is possible. It's just about giving them a right driving force towards their focus. And that's all from me. It's happy to connect, and it's such a, I would say, a mindful discussion, Arpit. So over to you. Thank you so much.
Arpit, you're on mute.
Arpit, your mic is muted.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I audible now? Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Chitra, for adding your points and giving insights about how photography and filmmaking will actually add value to this whole proposition that we are discussing. Now, one of the biggest challenge which I've, being there in the technology field from last 7-8 years and having had interactions with so many people around, is what EdTech feels one of the biggest challenges is the training and development and enhancement of the whole user experience, not just at students' end, but from the teachers, from the parents, from all the stakeholders involved in a school, because now schools are not isolated affairs. They have branched out. So I would now like to invite Sapna ma'am. Whatever I say about her would be less. So I've tried to just write some 3-4 things to introduce about her to our audience. She's a YouTube content creator, an amazing one. I mean, whenever you are feeling low in life, just go to her channel, watch some video, and you will be charged up to do something. She's an NEP mentor. She's a great storyteller. She has an extensive experience in the classrooms and a very strong understanding of pedagogical theories and practices, is what I personally believe. She has been spearheading many initiatives and programs in the education industry. I personally got an opportunity to be with her in Malaysia for a conference, and I was totally moved with her sharp understanding of education ecosystem and the areas wherein trainers require consistent support and they need to be channelized. So over to you, Sapna ma'am, that the way EdTech platforms are coming in and this holistic education we are talking about, what are the challenges you think trainers face and the ways to mitigate them?
Right. Thank you so much, Arpit. And thank you, Major Dr. Gulshan Sharma. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful platform. I feel privileged that I've been able to work with Arpit. He's such a fantastic human being. I've read all his books. He is also an author. We have it in our home library, all his books. And, when this invitation came, honestly, I had prepared a lot of points and I was very formally prepared. But I mean, I heard Akshal, I heard Priya, I heard Arya, and Dr. Gulshan. And I felt it's very important to be as candid as possible and be able to tell the real situations, the real problems. But, I would like to highlight a couple of things. And yes, Arpit, I'll definitely talk about the trainers, what they are facing day in, day out. And as Dr. Gulshan said that, glad that COVID happened. Why am I saying that? Because it's not that he said and I'm reiterating it. I have a different reason to it. So when I was reading an article where WEF, the World Economic Forum, says 85 million jobs are to be displaced by 2025. And there'll be a shift in the division of labor between humans and machines. And maybe at the same time, 97 million new roles emerge, which can adapt to this new division of labor. So, I mean, when we are talking about a sustainable future, when we are seeing that the world is changing at a rapid speed, education too. The world is witnessing a paradigm shift by developing innovative pedagogies. We are rethinking assessments. We are bringing in new age technologies. Technology is definitely makes us future ready, and it is the need of the hour, right? And when I talk about teaching, it's not an easy task, right? Because the teachers have to juggle between multiple responsibilities. And along with that, along with teaching, they have to keep the students interested, engaged, and focused. Now they need to be digitally competent. When I'm sharing all these things, I will bullet out a couple of pain points still existing, will continue to exist for a little longer than we believe. They'll have to be using, purposeful use of ICT and digital media to achieve the goals of related to teaching and learning, the pedagogical processes. When we are witnessing a transition, right, as the teachers are reinventing themselves to navigate the tectonic shifts in this education landscape, it's like the teachers update their skills with the emerging techniques and bridge the gaps. But what are these skills? Let us understand. I mean, it's very important. So they have to acquire the pedagogical skills. Why I say that is, whosoever is a teacher right now in 21st century, and we are sitting in the year 23, we talk about 21st century skills. The teachers are not of this century, or they haven't learned from the teachers of this particular century. So they have to start thinking about the skills like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, metacognition, socio-emotional learning, communication, collaboration, media literacy, economic and financial literacy, civic responsibility, global awareness, and what a child undergoes. How does a child communicate? I mean, when Priya was mentioning, children feel more comfortable talking to machines than to the human beings, because the human beings don't understand them probably, and we have a different reason to it. Right, now the question is, what skills do we have to start from? How do we start dealing with them? When the education scenario is changing so fast, what decisions do the school leaders make? How do they, what kind of training is required? What kind of capacity building? Everybody has started talking about capacity building. Well, that's a very, very good thing. But the challenge is, what I realized during COVID, in fact, when Arpit mentions about my YouTube, it was during the COVID I started contributing, because I felt it's very important for a teacher who cannot pay gets the right content. Because if the teacher is not getting the right content, see, in case we are trying to, the National Policy of Education talks about empowerment of teachers. And when the teachers are empowered, they'll be delivering the right things to the children. The challenge, which I've understood, is everybody is happy having smart children. When I say smart, I mean, refer to what Akshal said, specific, measurable, all those things will come automatically. So, when they talk, when they tell that what do they want to be in their future lives, some of them have started talking about startups, they talk about business, they talk about so many things. But we still do not have courage to face a group of teachers who can talk smartly. So there are people who are only training them, building their capacities. We talk about learning objectives and learning outcomes for children, and for the curriculum to be covered. I faced this pain, and I started talking to a group of teachers through my, the technology. These teachers were also from Kenya, these teachers from Nigeria, these teachers from India itself, from the remotest locations. And I found that everybody tells them only to complete a particular syllabus or a syllabi. That syllabi has to be covered, the syllabus has to be covered, with the learning objectives, with some activities, and the learning outcomes to be met, and the assessments to be taken in a particular format. Now I started talking to the teachers, but what is the problem? Isn't it right? You are getting so much of training. People are coming to train you. They said that, they don't let us speak. They only tell us. And I started working on training of trainers, and I'm constantly working on training of trainers. I feel when there is so much of work going to happen with teachers training, there should be some people who start working on the training of trainers. Because the trainers, when they go, again, the trainers, suddenly Dr. Gulshan mentioned that there's no chalk and talk. There is no single lighthouse from where the light comes. It applies to the trainers as well. So it's not that in a given particular format, with all those things, they go and build the capacity of teachers. Teacher is also a learner for that particular program. The learning outcomes have to be met. We need to understand the problems day in, day out. We talk about public schools, we talk about private schools. In private schools, I feel, yes, there is a lot of acceptability. There is a lot of training programs which are happening. There are a lot of things happening. But, again, these teachers, how many schools allow the teachers to actually design a particular program which they wish to deliver to the teacher, to the students? Another thing. The teachers are teaching students and the students get to talk to teachers. They're bound to talk to teachers and ask them questions. Now, let me give you an example. I'll come up with a couple of examples. So a student says that, ma'am, everybody on the YouTube is talking about financial literacy. So what do I do? Now, this teacher, I'm just trying to make you imagine, this teacher says, no, this share market is not for us. Nifty is not for us. Don't put your head into it. All what you have to do is you complete your course. Once you get to study, you can choose economics when you are in your grade 12, 11th and 12th. You can go ahead and do a course. If you feel it's okay, go and contribute your services into some bank or something. Now, there's a huge gap which has happened. Question what a student was asking and the answer which the teacher has given. For the simple reason, I feel there's a lot of illiteracy. The degrees do not bring knowledge. The degrees only bring literacy. So, we have to start equipping. I'm talking about real pain points, which I am observing day in, day out in my own capacity with iBigWonder. Sarthi Pedagogy is an organization where I work and as a CGO, and we contribute to improve the learning outcomes for children. And with iBigWonder, I'm totally focused with how can I make better teachers, better trainers, and how can I make them understand that a child will ask, even if you are from a scientific temperament or a mathematical temperament or from a humanities temperament, the child is open to ask you 10 questions. Once you answer 10, the child will ask you the 11th one. In case you do not have the answer, do you know where to guide the child to? The challenge is our teachers do not know where to guide the child to because they themselves don't know. Right. So here, what I understand, there's a huge problem. And but yes, every problem has a solution. In fact, when there is a problem, let's take it as a challenge. In fact, way back when NCTE in 2015-116, before that, there was an RTE Act. And they said that every teacher, around 6.6 million teachers then employed in elementary level, they were untrained. And out of these, I'm giving you some data, right? I'm not sharing my PPT, but I'm giving you these data. So out of these, nearly 5,12,000 were in government and aided schools, and nearly 5,98,000, or maybe nearly 6 lakh in private schools. And at secondary level, 2 million teachers, and 14% were not professionally qualified. According to the data, I'm taking this data from the Education Ministry. Now, CTET results for 2018 show that only 17% of 1.7 million candidates qualified as primary school teachers and 15% candidates as middle school teachers. Now, the challenge doesn't end over here. The challenge is, even after getting qualifying this test, when we talk about critical thinking, problem solving, decision making in real life classrooms, they were untrained. At school level, now it cascaded into different set of micro challenges for schools, inadequacies in written communication, and it results in the school correspondence. They are not able to correspond properly. It brings gaps in logical or systematic approaches to what I was talking about, problem solving. Resulting, what happens is teachers, they need a lot of hand holding and address challenges only on day-to-day basis. Where do they get to talk about the future needs, right? Pandemic definitely pushed the schools, and that is why I say that, had it not been pandemic, everybody to get trained on technology would have taken another 10 years, maybe a decade, more than a decade. But, because it was pandemic, a larger percentage at least started accepting technology, they embraced it. So, these computer professional skills and all those things, it is very, very important. There are pain points. Well, there's definitely good news also. In 2018-19, when budget of just 2% was allocated to Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, it went to teachers training institutes. And by now, I mean, I'm not talking about the current budget, but in between, it has increased from 2% to 10.5%. Right. I'm still yet to dig into this year's budget and know more about how much has been allocated for this. Now, teachers training is imperative to improve the learning outcomes in Indian classrooms. And this has been talked about by the government think tank Niti Aayog. Right. So it means in case the learning outcomes have to be improved in Indian classrooms, I talk only about specific Indian classrooms. That means the learning outcomes and the teacher training objectives, even for teachers' capacity building, have to be improved and have to be worked on. So, according to me, how to make teachers and not develop them only on their faculties or their subject competencies, or just upgrade them because, they have undergone certain number of hours of training. It's very important to make them holistic professionals. Every teacher needs to understand, be it in between teacher, be it a passionate teacher, be it a full-time teacher, be it just because they could not do anything and they got into this job of teaching, they have to become holistic professionals because they are dealing with real lives of students who need to be future ready, and they're going to be future professionals. So it's like the some suggestions or some things which I probably feel I can contribute, and it is something like, once these gaps have been identified, we need to shoulder the responsibility and get into the personalized learning pathway for every single member. By just conducting a capacity building program, it would not suffice. A post-training or a teaching assessment like is done for a child. Similarly, a post-training and a capacity building assessment for a teacher has to be done. Whatever the gaps are there has to be somebody who leads further ahead to help the teacher build. Because post the retirement, I mean, what better than Major Sir over here? Because, at this age, he's contributing so much. So there's no age to retirement. It is only re-attire, right? So the schools have to be progressive so that they embrace, they understand, they consider alternate methods and tools for the entire staff engagement. And very proactively, they start accepting that the training or capacity building or training of trainers has to be part of a learning curve. And this learning curve has to be like shortened as much as possible so that we can quickly deliver. Technology can definitely speed it up, make it reach to the end user. I understand there'll be device problems, there'll be internet problems, there could be so many other things which different teachers at different locations will feel. Nonetheless, we can still, speed it up with the help of technology. That's the only way. If I, single person, also believe that, I want to change the life of teachers and I want to help in capacity building of trainers and improve the trainers, without technology, I won't be able to reach even 0.1%. What am I talking about? To reinvent the training programs, redesign the training programs, to enhance the skill sets which meet the demand. So no, I can go on talking about, I have so much to talk about from the real classrooms, from the real teachers. Because, when I talk about the teachers development program, according to me, it's very important. Ideally, it will focus, or it should focus on the specific domains that need to be completely very well prepared and monitor the progress. It should not end with a certification program. We need to monitor the entire, when a child enters into a school, so it's like the early childhood care and education program, and then it's a primary class, it's a middle class, it's a senior secondary class. We monitor up to the higher education, even the dropouts now with National Policy of Education, with anytime exit, anytime entry, they get opportunity to move into a vocational training program. So when Arya was talking about the photography, I saw a lot of vocational thing coming into it. So in fact, I've been bulleting a lot of things that, okay, so these are some interesting areas which have started happening. So it's definitely going to be an arduous task. Together we can. once we've started thinking, I'm sure there are a lot of areas. So Arpit, I'm sure, I know Arpit is a person who reaches to the classrooms, reaches to the teachers. We've been doing it together. So I feel so happy. So the thing is that we need to empower our teacher and believe that teachers come from very, very small households also. And when these teachers come from very small households, not everybody in their homes allow them once they've completed their work time, they don't allow them to get into some kind of a learning, capacity building and improving themselves however they may wish to. So we'll need to design something within their school times where they can learn and they can start improving themselves. So, I mean, yes, that's it. I'll not take the time of the other speakers and then we can.
No, that's good. That's great. It was such a informative session, ma'am. In fact, some of the questions which are very interestingly coming onto the YouTube chatbot, ma'am, some of them we have already answered, but one question I would like to pose to you is, what should be the professional competencies of the trainers who are teaching these teachers?
Oh, great. Right. So, I have been.
Also somebody has asked, who will evaluate them?
Correct.
Somebody has asked, how do we know? Where have they been trained? Who has trained them? Are they self-motivated trainers or somebody has posted this question?
Thank you. Thank you, Major Dr. Gulshan.
First question, I would like you to answer it. And second question, I would like to like Dr. Aarti to take care of during her.
Yes, yes, of course, Aarti. So, first of all, thank you for this question. In fact, I just took a pause at that point of time and I thought, let the other panelists speak. So, first of all, it's okay. Thank you for this question. I'm not able to see the person who's there on the YouTube chat box.
Respected ma'am, with your permission, I would like to convey my deep gratitude and thanks to Honorable Union State Minister for Education and External Affairs, who is watching this program, and he's praising the efforts, the session which is going on. And Arpitji, he says that he'll be with us till end. Let it go on. Let the speaker express their views and take their own time. Sorry for the interruption. Sapna ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I understand. And thank you so much, the Honorable Minister too. Thank you so much. So, I personally have started actually, I not use the word hate, that's not a right word. So I've started not liking people who are fringe experts. So, it's only with the teachers training programs, anybody who's a fringe expert who can speak comes and delivers it to them. And that is, I think I'm leading the answer to Dr. Aarti also. So it is something like who checks. Number one, somebody who's been a professional, somebody who has proven credentials, who has the ability to engage people rightfully, who also has a capability of decision making, who can talk to the entire quadrants up. There's a teacher, so there's somebody above the teacher, there's somebody below the teacher, and there's somebody like peers to the teachers who can actually engage the entire cycle or entire quadrant of all these things. So it's very important that the schools stop engaging people who are just fringe experts. So somebody from the academia, somebody who's been through that entire, grassroots level, who's been there, I think would understand what happens in a teacher's life. Similarly, this person will, I am creating a lot of curriculum and courses where, we'll have to identify these are the set things which minimum things, which a trainer must have to go ahead and train. So I look forward for a lot of collaboration and a lot of help. Of course, Arpit is there, and now we've met this beautiful panel. So I think, Arpit, partially I've been able to answer. I'll go ahead later on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am, for these inputs. All right. So moving ahead now, I think in this session, what we have been trying to do is right from the base, we are trying to construct a building, and we are waiting for Dr. Aarti to come and do the ceiling on top of it. So before even I move to her, I would now invite a person who not just inspires me, but has inspired masses across different industries and different regions in Middle East and many other countries. I'm talking about Charul, who's co-founder and managing partner at Maititi Group. She won Mrs. UAE International Pageant in 2021. She is an international keynote speaker, a published author. She's a serial entrepreneur who endorses purposeful leadership. She has traveled and worked extensively in 40 countries. One of the incredibly amazing projects she runs, and I personally admire her for that, is blockchain-enabled tree plantation. So that's a little bit about her. And now over to Charul. To talk about Charul, we have been discussing about technology and a holistic approach to it, training, skills development, training need analysis, what needs to be done. But how important is willingness, wellness on top of this to drive it successfully?
Thank you, Arpit. You make me sound like a celebrity. I'm nothing but that. Delighted to be here. And I'm so glad you put me towards the end, because it's just been, fantastic listening to all the speakers. I think Akshal had to, bow out. He spoke and, provided some interesting inputs. Chitra, you were very inspirational. I think there was someone else, I'm forgetting their name, excuse my memory here, and Dr. Sapna, very, very, very inspiring, and I think this all gives us hope that, things will get better. And, it's upwards and onwards. We only have to get better at what we do from here onwards. Just let me know with a thumbs up if you can see my screen. I'm trying to just present. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So, Arpit and I met not too long back, and, he shared, his journey with ICSI and everything, really beautiful. And I congratulate him for his efforts. And we spoke about education. Now, education can be looked at from many, many different perspectives. It's really, it's a mold. And you're putting the soil, the clay, whatever you want to call it, in the form of these children, these young minds into the mold, right? Whichever way we take the responsibility of molding these future kids or future generations to come will be the end result. And there is somewhere our responsibility, and how did we do? How well did we do it? And part of the work that I do is around, holistic approach, wellness, mindset shifts. And, we primarily work with leaders and execs and C-suite. And Arpit really got me thinking when we started to talk about these young minds. And I'll be honest, Arpit, I put this presentation up in half an hour because the subject is so close to my heart and the subject is so inspiring itself. It was very easy to, project what it is that one can do to enable, these leaders of tomorrow. Just a little bit about us. We as Matiti Group, we started our journey in 2016. I've been living in the Middle East for almost 20 years. I feel very old over here. This is like second home. My heart belongs to India. But when we started in 2016 with my background in human capital, we set up something called Matiti People, and my partner, he set up Matiti Tech, so where we do a lot of AI and blockchain work. Very quickly, we realized that the way forward was sustainability. And as much as we wanted to propagate sustainability, we wanted to be a carbon neutral brand ourselves. So we brought in something called Matiti Green, which is what connected Arpit and I a couple of years back. And under Matiti Green, we kind of reimagined tree plantation. And what we've done is we have our own platform, click of a button, device of your choice. You can, through blockchain and AI, visit your trees. You have an AI chatbot, so you can chat with your tree. You can send a message to the farmer. You can see the weather conditions in the location. And the idea is to drive the change in culture and create that awareness around sustainability. We then created something called Activity Network, which is our defense consulting arm. We have Matiti Capital, which is trade financing and equity financing, and Meds, which is our trading arm. A little bit about myself, I will save it for later if anybody has any questions, wants to explore things together. But I was hoping a bigger audience today. I'm sure there are people listening on other channels. And I just want to ask this. I want to interact with the audience a little bit. This is a fact that you see here on your screen. So almost certain percentage of children, this is Indian stats here, in grade 3 in India have been reported to have no basic reading and arithmetic skills. I wish to ask you, or if there is any response coming in, Arpit or Dr. Gulshan from other channels. What do they think is the percentage of children in or below grade 3 who have been reported to have no basic reading or arithmetic skills? Any responses, Arpit? Let me know. You're muted.
I'm just checking it on our YouTube audience, where it is live.
We'll give some time to them as the
Okay.
session progresses, because the minister is watching. So let it go on.
Sure.
And we'll take the
They
questions.
can
Yeah,
cheat.
yeah,
They can
yeah.
cheat. So we
Sure.
skip through the slide. So it is almost 70%, right? And you know, I wanted to pull out these facts is because, you know, I personally believe there's a lot of lip service that happens around the world. And really, you know, nothing really kills more dreams than inactivity. You know, we fail to act, we fail to implement. There was another fact which really, you know, these are the things which, you know, bowled me over. So the Indian schools have yet to implement vocational courses as part of their curriculum. What percentage is that? And I was surprised, 85%. And that is, while this is a gray area, I think there is an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity. The future for us, as we know, is AI, is VR, is AR, it's digital twins, it's metaverse. In fact, just this week, I was at an event here in Dubai and I was talking about enterprise metaverse. And these were business leaders, you know, owners of businesses, founders of big, huge tech companies, and they were talking about internships of undergrads, internships of young minds. And why do they want to do that? Because they know the scope of future is there. They know that it is at that age that we need to mold them and create the awareness about these subjects, which will become a reality in no time. I think it's just around the corner. The other thing which is staring us in our faces in India and internationally is the gender gap when it comes to, you know, tech education. These were some stats, again, which kind of caught my attention. And, you know, from women having access to internet, from women or girl child being able to use a computer or being able to have access to a mobile phone or a network, there are some glaring gaps between male users and female users. Whether we choose to address it or acknowledge it is our choice as leaders, but this is the reality. And tech and education, if you look, this is again for you know, our Indian minds. So internet users aged 5+, we have 450 million users, right? And we have 12 plus 385, 66 million in the age of 5 and 11. And how many use the internet? Is 36%. And we're talking about bringing them and, you know, creating educational platforms for them. And then it talks about the schools and the teachers and the students. And again, you know, the research and the data is pointing in a different direction. And it is making us think, are we doing enough? Is what has been done enough? Or do we need to be more aggressive, more agile, and more considerate in our efforts? Again, gender, women are at least 50% or less as compared to men. And like I was saying, really, if you ask me, I see all of this as an opportunity. I see not for me or for my business, an opportunity for an economy to improve, an opportunity for a generation to have a better future than you know, the current generation. And with that in mind, let me just ask, you know, and again, engage with the audience and, you know, whatever they're reading and understanding, we all, if not, you know, everyone, most of us, we have a phone. And, you know, time and again, we get a reminder from our phone software device saying, oh, you have to upgrade the software. And by the time we actually even get it, a lot of us just change our phones. We keep upgrading our phones. So we upgrade it to fix bugs, efficiency, battery life, and there's so many other things. And why do we do it? You know, some examples is that we want our phone to continue to have, you know, good efficiency in its usage, battery life, and so on and so forth. And my question really is, you know, what about us? When I say us, we're talking about, you know, let's say education evangelists, education entrepreneurs, education decision makers. You know, what are we doing for the frameworks that worked before and are impacting today's generation or not? Do we agree that from time to time, we also need to upgrade our approach, our style, our delivery, our curriculum, our mindset, right? And if yes, what is it that we are willing to integrate? What is it that we are willing to upgrade? And that needs to be a very deep and focused discussion, because that is what will lead us to the results that we all together, that today we've been talking about, will derive from. And, you know, at Matiti, what the work we do is we focus on, like I was saying, really something which is deep. It's like programming. When you look at a computer programming or phone programming, you're writing codes in the back end, right? It's not just the look and feel of an app, it's really the code that goes into the back end. And similarly, if we want to create the changes that, in the last 1 hour that I've heard a lot of speakers speak about, I personally believe and endorse that there needs to be some level of work that needs to go deeper than our skin, which is, go into our brain and create SOPs for our brain, like we create SOPs for our operations. Now, when I came up with brain SOPs and when I went to the organizations here, they thought I was a cuckoo, and that's fine. But really, if you are so driven to make sure that your operations work on a standard operating procedure, why can we not reverse engineer and look at our own selves and see how are we managing our own potential? How are we managing our own mindset? How are we managing our own powerhouse, which is our brain? So we have a whole, Matiti methodology where, you can choose to be the SOP, which is on the left side of the screen, or you can be the SOP, which is on the right side of the screen. And, somewhere or another, you will come to the end result. But what do you want to be? I think most of us want to be that linear, clear, nicely laid out, brain map, rather than, those millions of arrows pointing in every different direction. And the how behind it is, we did a lot of research. We bought interns from different universities because we wanted it to be science-based. And what we realized is, what we do is we create brain processes. We see how the brain responds to certain stimuli, to certain action words, to certain, things that instigate our mind in a different direction than it should. We prepare the mind for readiness of, what is the change that is about to come? What is the change that we want to see and we want to utilize our brain for? And really, find a mechanism, because, even, the phone needs to be recharged, right? Your computer needs to be plugged in when the power runs out. So there has to be a mechanism where we recharge our brain. And, this is very, very high level. I'm kind of not even skimming the surface. These are 2 days, 3 days workshop where we really give tools and methodologies for people to start to have brain SOPs for themselves, and no two brains will be the same. So, and again, Arpit, this reminds me of our last coffee, right? Arpit was going around talking about learning. And I was like, Arpit, from where I sit, learning is great. But learning is in today's day and world, not for everyone, but for most, is all about skill development. And how I see it, if you're not willing to learn that skill, then it's as good as a waste. And I think Dr. Sapna spoke about it a while back, right? And Dr. Gulshan spoke about it, that, it's a mindset shift. Yes, you can have all the tools and resources. I mean, I was speaking about stats on having access to computers and internet. If there is no willingness, if the women child or the girl child is not encouraged to learn a skill, she might as well sit at home and not have internet at all, right? So it is a beautiful combination of skill and will. And I'll give you an analogy to explain that, if this is a big problem in this part of the world, we are surrounded by sun and 80% of the population here suffers from vitamin D deficiency. Would you believe it? So, we say the one way of doing it is drink a lot of milk. But if you're already vitamin D, deficient, you can drink a lot of milk and it will not be absorbed. When you go to the doctor, he'll give you that little pill. Yeah, he's like, okay, eat this pill and now drink your milk. And what that pill does is it aids absorption of that milk that you're drinking, which will then help you, get over this deficiency of your vitamin D. So for us, the work around willingness is that magic pill. It helps you in the absorption of the skill that you want to teach to your kids, to your employee, to your whoever, right? And then it's a magical combination, because then that skill is sinking in deep. It will stay, it will nourish their creativity, and that will lead to wellness. So, the subject that Arpit spoke about or wanted me to speak about is how willingness and wellness come hand in hand in this whole experience through education and learning. And this is how I feel it will do the magic. So for us, when we do the skill and will combination, again, it's our bespoke trademark learning. It's called fusion learning. And we do very, very specific programs where we enable the willingness to learn a certain skill through fusion methodology. And the concept really is, while skill is the platform, willingness is the readiness that allows you to upgrade into that skill. And at Masiti, like I've written here, we provide those tools and resources for one to be able to find that launchpad to one, learn that skill and be able to implement it and become a better version of who they are. Deep positive relevance. It has made some great impacts in the way people have started to see what learning and knowledge development and creativity can be. Like I said, it is really the art of absorption through our training programs. And working on will is like, you're preparing somebody to become that sponge. That, okay, I'm ready, give me more. I'm ready, give me more. And I was reading this book the other day, and it was all about education and technology and the new trends. And there was something very, very simple that was written, and it says, education is one thing that nobody can take away from you, your knowledge, your education. So people might come to your home, they might steal whatever they want, or they might take away what belongs to you. But this is really yours. Education and your intrinsic behavior, because of your willingness to absorb that education, is yours. And when I look at the way forward and kind of expanding the paradigm from the Indian context to a global context, there's really a lot of work. This is based on the research by Holon IQ, and really worldwide, only less than 4% is on digital spend. And we have such huge ambitions of wanting to do what we want to do, where the decision makers and the governments globally are looking at a less than 4% digital spend. Over the last couple of years, there's been an increase, but in the next 5 years, the projection is 12.2% increase. So we all have hope. Yeah, we all have positive projections, and I think the work that Arpit and Dr. Gulshan is trying to drive is very encouraging. It's very timely and will be supported because of the trends that we are seeing through the different economies around the world investing into such programs. And advanced technology growth in education, really, it's going to be AR and VR is going to take the spotlight, wherein, blockchain, I think it's taking its dive now, and few years it will take, the wave up again, because, it really has taken the main stage or the center stage for the last couple of years. But robotics, if you look at AI, if you look at AR, VR, this is future, or in fact, this is our present. And we have to create opportunities for these beautiful young minds to have opportunity to understand and learn what it is that we really can do with this, right? Again, I think, holistically, it's time for a lot of us, if not already, is to reevaluate what, the context of the world is with regards to what we wish to achieve, and recalibrate and be factual about what it is that can be delivered and what it is that we can add value to. Again, rather than lip service, rather than wishful thinking, it's more about execution, right? So if you look at the EdTech, it's a $22.5 billion industry. It's huge, it's massive, the scope is humongous, right? 260 million children in today's day and age still do not go to school, right? And then, every dollar spent, this is like a little motivation in the end for people who want to invest in such programs, is every dollar spent on employee e-learning, for example, or even children e-learning, will result in $30 productivity gain in times to come. And that is the kind of future we want to create. That is the kind of future we wish to enable. So yeah, on that note, this is me. If anybody wishes to connect with me, I'm again very grateful. This is something which is really, really close to my heart. As my life's purpose, it's to enable girl child, and we do different kind of things. And Arpit, this is phenomenal. And Dr. Gulshan, thank you for the opportunity. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charul, for such a wonderful insight. I mean, sharing such wonderful insights with all of us. I have a couple of questions and some comments coming in the YouTube section. I was just looking at it. So one of the audience members, I'm not remembering the name, but then she just wrote, she or he, I'm not sure, but somebody just wrote, why is there a gender gap? So initially I thought they are talking about our panel and we, male members being less on the panel. Somebody has commented it.
Yeah.
So, to answer to her post. But I would like you, if you can just briefly, put some spotlight on it. The gender gap has got a lot of political, social, economic perspectives. But yeah, you would want to add.
Arpit, there are many different ways in which, the data can be sliced and diced. So, similarly for the reports that I've shared. However, I want to talk specifically about the context in which I pulled out this report, right? So here the gender gap is in the context of girl-child education, access of a girl child to internet or computers or phones, right? In terms of tech-enabled education. So the difference really is because one, we still are a society, a culture where there's a lot of work that needs to happen in terms of awareness around the benefits of educating a girl child. So I think the households where these kids are coming from, which is their parents or the providers, whoever they may be, are still reluctant, and there is still a bias in terms of male versus female child. It's a very sensitive and a delicate topic to talk about, but this is the reality, right? One is that. The other is still a notion that when a child grows up, only a male child becomes the bread earner of the house and is the one who is responsible for feeding the members of the house. Whether it's a truth or not, perhaps 200 years ago was a fact, and the society and the grain of the society was very different. But in today's day and age, there are very, nuclear families where the only child the parents have is a girl child, right? Now, what do they do, right? So those dynamics have changed. It's very simple, Arpit. If a certain exercise worked on your body when you were 5 years old, and if you continue to do it when you're 50 years old, who are we fooling, right? As you grow, as your body changes, as your mechanics shifts, you adapt your training style, you adapt your, workout style. And the same workout needs to be applied to our brain, to our society, to our culture. So I know it's a very long answer to the question, but I just wanted to give some context.
No, I completely agree to it. Yes. As I think you were mentioning about brain SOPs, and each brain works in a different way. So yeah. Rightly said. I believe the person who asked this question on our YouTube live audience must have got this answer. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Aarti, who has been waiting patiently for her chance to come. But I'm pretty sure all the insights given by all the other panelists are going to help Dr. Aarti understand what exactly the EdTech is facing as a challenge, and what exactly the companies, the corporates are looking at in terms of a holistic integration of certain programs, which reaches out to the masses in their right intended ways. So just to introduce Dr. Aarti to our audience, she is India representative and project leader for ISO 2101-2018, which deals with management systems for educational organizations. She is an expert in various domains of education, right from early childhood education to school education, higher education, training, coaching, mentoring, learning and development for operational excellence, risk management, sustainable development, educational models, business continuity, and skill building to enable the achievements of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. She has trained more than 10,000 educational leaders from more than 40 countries in standardization and accreditation in the last 23 years of her professional journey. Over to Dr. Aarti to share some spotlight on the topic.
Thank you so much, Arpit, and thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the opportunity. It's a pleasure being here amongst you all. And being the last speaker definitely puts you under a lot of pressure, because all the other wonderful speakers have already set the benchmarks very high, so you have to meet all of that. But I'm grateful that the topic that I have is kind of a summarization of whatever has been shared so far. Dr. Gulshan had started sharing about the Inspirational Lab, the Digital Inspirational Lab at the ICSI finishing school, and which is working on the kind of a cloud computing platform, and mostly the virtual sessions are happening. And yesterday itself, I was a part of one of the panel discussions where I was moderating the session, and one of the speakers on technology, he very well mentioned that the users' patterns have completely changed over the last 3-4 years. our attention spans have reduced a lot. So we've now moved to the applications like Blinkit and all, where we want our stuff to be ordered and delivered within 5 minutes. So, but I would say learning is the only thing where we are all very patient. We don't want learning to happen immediately, and it actually happens over the years. Arpit, please allow me to share my screen. Akshal shared about the project-based learning. Chitra mentioned very well about one of the important guidelines that in Dubai, the inspection group follows, the ministry follows, and all these schools have to abide by that. And Chitra said that if the schools want to improve their ratings, they have to incorporate some of the after-school programs. Then Dr. Sapna mentioned about the teacher trainings not happening the way they should be happening. Priya spoke about the career guidance using AI and ML. I was just wondering, Priya, how easy it would have been if all the schools had the data of the children right from the beginning when they enter the school till the time they pass out from the school, and give it to you as a company to kind of analyze and see what were the interests of the child during those 15, 16 years of his or her school education career. So something like this really needs to be done by the edtech companies, and they are very, very, I think they've stabilized their operations in such a way that they will be able to do it. They should be able to do it. I think it's going to be very simple. It's just that probably schools have never thought of it. So I was sharing with some of the schools, and some of them have developed some in-house tools where all the class teachers and the subject teachers, they all coordinate and put the grades together and just see which are the areas that the child is participating more. If a child has been a debater, maybe from kindergarten to grade 12, he's been doing this. If a child has been a good singer or a good dancer. So if all this data gets shared with the career guidance organizations who are doing it using the AI, the results would be phenomenal. So, then lastly, I think Charul spoke very well about the new age curriculum and gender equality. Now, my only concern is that if we do not know how to monitor what we are doing, how would we know that whatever we are doing is the right way of doing it? Somebody had asked one of the questions on the YouTube, who's going to validate what the trainers are doing or how competent the trainers are? So there has to be an external validation, a third-party validation. So this is what we do. At the Center of Assessments for Excellence, we are accredited by the National Accreditation Board and the International Accreditation Forum recognition. So we assess the institutions right from the early childhood to university level, of course, schools as well, where we tell them that whatever they are doing, are they doing it in the expected way? Are they meeting the international norms, the international standards? Let me just quickly share my screen, please. Give me a minute. So let me give you a little bit context about how I got into this and why we are doing this. Because standardizations, generally people feel that this is something that should be taught in the schools. Standardization is like the way you are doing it. Are you meeting some of the best practices or the global best practices or not? I'll just quickly start my story. So I did this because my mother was a very passionate school leader. She loved her work. She was very, very passionate and very trusted kind of a leader. And then before her, it was my grandmother who was also an equally passionate leader. But both of them, whenever we used to sit together, the kind of concerns that the both of them used to share were, how do I leave a legacy behind? Will my successor be as passionate as I am? Is there someone who can come validate, stamp my methods of running the institution? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I delivering value to my students, my parents, my teachers? Without my best staff, how am I going to run my school? And I think while I'm sharing all of this, all of you also must be wondering that these are the common concerns generally that the school leaders have. When I say leaders, not just the principals, of course, the people who are running the schools, the promoters of the school.
Most of these concerns I also have, man. Like I think right now I'm thinking about these things.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think everybody, whosoever is running a business entity, schools are also run as a business entity because it's an organization, right? And to run an organization, you need to have an understanding of the strategic leadership. You need to have an understanding of your vision and mission and how you achieve your goals and objectives. So I think every business leader has to think about all of this. Then both of those ladies, always they used to say, my staff doesn't have any clarity about goals and purpose. Why am I running this school? My people are not as passionate as I am. How do I prepare my school to respond to emergencies? So in case something goes wrong, how all of a sudden we are all going to gear up and respond to it? How do we cater to diverse learners? In a class of 40 children, every learner has got different learning abilities. So how do the teachers understand those learning abilities and cater to the need of every diverse learner, right? How do I innovate? If I want to do something new, I can't continue to teach in the same way for years. Here I would also like to share a very funny this thing that I generally share with a lot of schools. So my mother did her bachelor's in education when I was in school, I think grade 8 or grade 9. So because I was very creative, I used to help her with the lesson plans and all the learning material that's needed when you're doing your bachelor's in education. I did my bachelor's in education in the year 2004. So after all these years, I could still use the material that I had prepared for my mother. The reason is the curriculum did not change over the years. So what she was teaching 20 years back, I was also going to teach the same thing in the schools. So I think this is where things started getting built up. And I started thinking, yeah, I really need to do something for school education. And the last question that both of them used to struggle with was, what if? What if means, how am I going to ensure business continuity? If something happens to me today, my school is going to go down. So with this, I was always thinking that something needs to be done. And I was very fortunate. It's been around 23 years that I'm working in the field of education, majorly on standardization. And in 2019, the Bureau of Indian Standards nominated me to represent the country in Europe in one of the meetings. And there we were working on developing a standard, an international standard, with the involvement of around 100 countries who were the member bodies, and they were all sharing their feedbacks and the best practices, and everything was collated, and one single standard was made. That's what we talk about, standardization. So it's a booklet that prescribes all the norms, the best practices that the educational organization should be following. And I was nominated as the project leader, and now we are working on kind of refining it further, taking feedback from all the countries who are the members. Now, this is one important thing that I want to talk about is, as a third party, when somebody is coming and assessing your systems, that person needs to have the competence to do that. It can't be anybody who comes and tells you this you're doing right and this you're not doing right and give you a report and you start working on it and you're clueless how to go about it. So that body has to be an accredited body. That means that body should also be audited by someone, right? So we are audited by the NABCB, and NABCB in turn is getting audited by the IAF, that is International Accreditation Forum, which is the highest body in the whole world in the auditing systems. So we visit the institutions and we kind of assess their systems. Now, the standard that I'm talking about is the first ever international standard, which has been officially introduced as the Education Management System Standard. In 2018, it got published, and since then, a lot of educational institutions across the whole world are following it. They are implementing it. In fact, during the COVID times, all the schools who had already implemented, for them, it was transitioning to the online mode and changing everything and carrying out a risk mitigation thing and orienting parents as well as all the other stakeholders became a cakewalk because their processes were all in place. And the cherry on the ice was that, standard setting and accreditation became a mandatory norm in NEP 2020. And then very recently, just a couple of months back, the NAC, which is for the higher education, they issued an advisory that this standard ISO 21001 should be implemented by all the higher education institutions. So in India, yeah, of course, this is going to have a lot of validation and value. And internationally, also a lot of countries are doing it. This is the overall structure. Like you must be wondering, what do we assess when we visit an institution? What do we look into? So in my language, I always use a very crude jargon which says chairman to doorman. Everybody gets audited. Everybody, every process gets audited. Dr. Sapna was talking about a very interesting process, that is the teacher training process. I was just thinking in my mind, if the teacher training process right from the beginning is not set right, the first step is identifying the relevant training needs. So if we don't know which teacher requires what training, how are we going to design our training programs, right? And the second point is understanding the importance and the significance of those trainings. As per the current practice in our country and in most of the other nations also, how do we conduct our trainings? Maybe a publisher comes and tells us, I'm doing a training free of cost. This is a complimentary service if you purchase my books. So as a leader, I'll ask all my teachers to undergo that training. CBSE Sahodaya is conducting a training. It's mandatory for me to send my teachers to that training, right? I see some of the teachers who are idle, who are not doing much work. I don't like them. Let me send them to a training for 3 days. I want them to go off. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons that we have why we train our teachers. So understanding the training needs and then designing the trainings to suit those needs, to meet those needs so that we get the relevant outcomes. Dr. Sapna also mentioned about one very important aspect, and that is evaluating the effect. I'm so sorry. Being a Sunday, we are all in the house. So this doorbell, please don't mind that. So she mentioned about evaluating how effective our trainings are. So once you've done the training, you forget about it. Somebody has to keep tracking, keep monitoring how well the teacher is able to implement the newly acquired skills in the classroom setup, right? And only then you can kind of handhold or mentor your teachers. We have the mentor-mentee systems in most of the schools these days, but how effective those are? How have we planned them? How have we designed them? So I think everything. You talk about career guidance, you talk about educator skill, you talk about managing your entire communication thing, managing the documentation. You've got huge documentation in every school, you know. With EdTech, I think the papers have gone down and most of the schools claim that they've gone paperless. But still at the same time, there is huge documentation which we are not able to control. Something really interesting happens when we go for assessments. You ask a teacher or maybe an admissions in charge or a recruitment in charge, how much of documentation do you have? How many policies and guidelines you have? How many files you have? And she's clueless. She'll have to look for the relevant versions. In fact, one teacher opened her folder on the laptop and very proudly she said, we are all using our laptops and let me show you, you know, I've got all those files in place. And she wanted to show me 1 minute of the meeting because we wanted to see what kind of discussions take place. She opened one file and the file name was Minutes of Meeting 2020. She says, no, I'm so sorry, this is not the relevant version. She opened another version which says Minutes of the Meeting 2020 Draft. The third file says Minutes of the Meeting 2020 Final. Minutes of the Meeting 2020 for Management. So you actually don't know which is the file that you want to refer to. So this is just a very small example. And similarly, you know, every process that you have in the school, it has to be looked at with the process approach. What are the inputs that are needed and what is the expected outcome that you're looking at? So your input and output, and in between, what are the procedures that you're following? What are the guidelines that you're adopting? What are the policies that you have? And how are you going to mitigate the risks that are there? So again, going back to the training process, my risk could be, I don't get the desired outcomes. Or the teachers come to the training, but they are not interested in getting trained. So how am I going to mitigate the risk? Maybe I'll say, let me change my process. And next time when I'm conducting a training, I'm first going to conduct a counseling session for the teachers who are going to attend a training program. So you will be able to improve your processes only when you know what risks exist in every process. So this is the, this is something nice that I really love. And when I was studying at IIM Bangalore, one of our professors who teaches operations management, he had shown this picture to all of us. If you all look at this, it's a small boat in a small pond. The boat has to go to the other end of the pond, right? You have to provide the educational product and service to the learner who's standing on the other end. Now, there is a big boulder that you see, and the boat is not able to cross that boulder. So what do? Since people are on YouTube, it's difficult to engage. But in our class, what happened when the professor asked us this, we gave all sorts of funny answers. You cut the boulder down, you airlift the boat and bring it to the other end, you airlift your learner and bring it on the boat, and all sorts of answers. Now, the professor said, the boulders are all types of challenges that you face. The biggest boulder right now that you see may be related to something like quality. It may be related to productivity of your employees. It could be employee retention. It could be resource utilization. You're not able to do that well. It could be learner satisfaction. I'm doing a lot of training. I'm doing a lot of curriculum mapping. I'm doing a lot of learning outcomes mapping. But then how about the satisfaction of the learner with the services that I'm providing in my school? How about my research initiatives, my competition? There are a lot of schools around me, the kind of facilities they are able to provide. Am I able to gear my system up and bring it to the level where I can sustain? So the boulders can be anything. Right now, you're looking at the biggest boulder. You trim that down, but in a few days, you will see the other small boulders coming up and again blocking your boat. So you have to look at your organization in a very holistic manner. It cannot be one odd area. It cannot be just the learning outcomes. It cannot be just the teacher training. It cannot be just your admissions, your retention, and the other things. So you have to have a holistic approach so that you can become a sustainable organization. Now, when we audit the institutions, we certify them for 3 years, but every year there is a check. We again visit the institution once in a year where we again see that the claims that the institutions had made in the first year, they still continue to comply with those claims. So all 3 years, continuously, when an institution is getting monitored and audited by a third party, they will of course be always on their toes, and they will also build up an internal auditing mechanism where they can also ensure that before the third party comes and visits them, they are completely ready for this kind of an audit, right? So finally, I would just like to say that with the introduction of NEP, standardization is going to have a very, very significant place in the country. And we have also certified a lot of institutions in more than 10 countries. And in India, all the parts of the country we've been able to cover. We have audited all kinds of schools, right from CBSE, ICSE to the Cambridge and international boards, and the government schools, the smaller ones, the bigger ones, the rural schools, the urban schools, all kind of institutions. And the kind of experience that we've got from them and the learnings that we've got from them, we are trying to share them with a lot of other people so that the whole system in our nation can be improved. And at the Bureau of Indian Standards, since I'm convening a few committees there, we are working on standards like the e-learning standard. We are working on campus facilities and infrastructure standard. And I'm also involved with the standard development with the Chinese delegation and about 60 more countries who are participating. The standard is for the industry academia partnership. So how this can be strengthened, how internships can be improved, how volunteering with the institutions can be improved. So I'm sure with standardization, we will soon see kind of a transformation of the whole system. This is a new concept. People have started adopting it, and the schools who have done it, they come back and say, why didn't we do it before? We should have realized this maybe 10 years ago, and we should have done this already. They've been able to improve the teacher retention. They've been able to keep the students in the school. Nobody's leaving those schools. So if the dropout ratio has been, the rate has been, say, 20% 3 years before they had done the standardization, now it has gone down to only 1% in a lot of schools. So they are able to measure the outcome and the impact of whatever they are doing. We need a lot of people. I would request you all, those who know the experts who can help us in this whole journey, we would train them as auditors and we would include them as trainers. And we need a lot of capacity building and handholding for schools. And my only request to the ICSI is that you're doing amazing work, Dr. Gulshan. I am so happy to see. And I have myself attended a lot of your panel discussions before and interacted with you informally a lot of places. And it's amazing to see at this age the kind of initiatives that you're taking. Please continue this. And after every session, I would urge you as an auditor, let's make action plans. Let's make it work. So many discussions are happening here. Let's note them down and make a very concrete and an implementable action plan. And I am there to support you at whichever stage you want. Thank you so much. Arpit, thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Aarti ma'am, for such inspiring words and all your support across. I think you have already summed it up. So my role towards the end is not required though, but still I would just like to add a little bit before I hand it over to Dr. Gulshan sir. And we have extended a time a little bit now. And I think not a little bit, it's been more than an hour, sir. We have extended. We are extremely, I'm apologetic for it, but the kind of insights which are coming in from each panel members, I think it was worth listening and making notes. I have kind of filled almost around 7-8 pages, which will be a small research document and what Aarti ma'am just said, to come to some action plan and some certain takeaways which can further reach out as a policy and which we can do some pilot as a project somewhere to see how well all of us collaborate together. So for EdTech and the challenges and the topic that we have been discussing, I believe experts from wide spectrum have to come together to create this 360-degree program that includes setting up processes, KPIs, monitoring them, auditing them, creating a creatively crafted curriculum which supports sustainability from all dimensions, bringing in a user experience, what Chitra highlighted, capturing all skills, interests, areas, achievements, passions of students using technology, empowering willingness and wellness, so that all of this starts getting driven on its own. And then I believe a layer of EdTech has to come in picture, wherein scaling it up and usage of AI perhaps would add more interesting insights to it and make it more exciting. On that note, I would now give Dr. Sir to pass on his comments, and thank you once again all the panel members for being here and sharing your inputs.
Thank you very much, Arpit ji, and all my brothers and sisters, those who have come for this particular program and gave their valuable time, inputs. And I think I was the best student today. I learned so much from each one of you, and I always keep learning. That is something, I believe I keep my mind open all the time. Before we just quickly run through what Aarti ma'am has told, action plan. Certainly, Arpit ji, you have taken out 8 pages. So those 8 pages we'll synthesize together and let's work it out and we send across to Aarti ma'am. Let me just, while thanking our audience, we touched up to 267 people. Those were watching at one point of time, but it happens because everybody doesn't have that much of time in their own spare time, at their own pace. And that's what I learned from Dr. Professor M.M. Pant, who brought first time the online technology as a pro vice chancellor of IGNOU, that future education is going to be self-paced learning. Self-paced learning anytime, anywhere. Before Aarti ma'am leaves, I'll take 2 minutes and we just wind up and finish the program. Priya ma'am, it was fantastic what she gave from Singapore. We would like to take her in future. Arpit, I was so impressed. You are wearing inside your jacket or your coat, a beautiful shirt where you have written, "We are the chosen ones." Wow. I read it carefully and you wrote it twice. I know you are chosen one, and that's why I requested you, please moderate this entire program. Akshal Agrawal also gave wonderful inputs, and he told the world is our canvas. And I think it's no more competition. It's a collaboration which we have to work on. Anybody who's living in a myth now also, that I have a competition. That's wrong. I think it's a collaboration we have to work on. And something new word I learned from him so far. In the NEP 2020, it was given, we move from STEM to STEAM. But he gave the stream R also today. That is something really nice, reading and writing. So that's good. Priya ma'am, mathematics, yes. I know Arpit is also very fond of mathematics, and I believe in one strategy, and our chamber is working very hard. We are having a presence in 131 countries, and presently our strategy is going on how music for education. We are very keen. I don't know, in certain schools you go with my folding hands, I would like to say, principal doesn't smile. They don't laugh. The person who is sitting outside, they say, why do you want with principal? Why do you want to see? Send a slip inside. Why don't we smile? Why there's no humor? Why there's no happiness? Education got to be stimulating and rewarding. Coming to Arya, Chitra ma'am, that is the photo shoot, what you have given, that touched my heart. Radio, television, theater, music, everything got to be integral part of education. More and more children have to be brought into that. Dr. Sapna Agarwal ma'am, she gave wonderful, and I picked up some sentences from there, smart children. And when she was talking about skills of 21st century, and we are already in 23, and my concern all the time, I keep thinking, when the skills are not going to be relevant by the time I become employable or I become eligible to take up a particular employment, then what do I do? What do I learn? In my life skills, what are you packaging? Why are you loading me with so much of academics? Give me something. Can education be something when I get up in the morning until I go to sleep? Whatever happens in my life, it should be nature-based and it should be relevant to my day-to-day living and my life. That should be the skill and that should be the academics. Coming to Charul Jetli ma'am, something wonderful when she talked about the 40 groups and blockchain and tree plantation and brain SOP. I had heard in the Indian Army different SOPs, but today for the first time I got a word, brain SOP, standard operating procedure. Great, 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 great. And she used something fusion learning, and pick up the word is skill and will. Yes, unless you are not willing, why to give a particular skill to somebody? I think the passion and profession has to follow each other. Something very interesting. Coming to Aarti Khosla ma'am, she gave such a wonderful, valuable inputs to all of us. In fact, the action plan, certainly we will work on. Ma'am, I just wish to share over here before we close today's session, while conveying my deep gratitude and thanks to the Honorable Union State Minister for Education and, the external affairs. He is very keen about Southeast Asia. Should be brought closer to India via route of Northeast part of India. All the 8 beautiful states where we have got 45 million population. Now, G20 verticals are there. We were there for 3 days in Run of Kutch. And can you imagine what was the title given over there? The first working group of tourism for G20 in India, where the people have come from different countries, rural tourism. They were not talking about 5-star or 7-star hotels or ultra modern. They told India live in villages. The world lives still in villages. Let's talk about rural tourism, agri-tourism, organic tourism, nature-based tourism, eco-tourism, and farm tourism. That's what was deliberated. Now, there is another vertical of G20, which is an education vertical. I wish to share with the global audience, keep a watch on to that. The first meeting of the G20 Education Working Group has already taken place on 1st and 2nd of February 2023 in Chennai. There were 75 foreign delegates and there were 900 plus Indian delegates in that from different places. That was in IIT Madras. The next meeting is taking place in Amritsar. That is from 15th, 16th and 17th of March. Then thereafter, the meeting is in Bhubaneswar. And there's another meeting in Pune, 4 meetings of education. They have combined skills also with that. So education and skills under G20, India should take advantage of that. And all our teachers, trainers, counselors, mentors, coach, all of us, we work together. Let's plan it out. Let's work together. After 20 minutes, I'm going for the global, another program, Ayurveda for the global wellness. That's at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. we'll be going to Canada. So I'm having a free ticket, business class, without paying single rupee. Today I traveled to Dubai also, Abu Dhabi also, Sharjah also, Uttarakhand also, Kota also, which is going to get the airport very soon. And I saw something organic, the plantation part also, which is coming from the Dubai side. And Arti Khosla ma'am finally giving internship. That is something very important in education. फिर भी दिल में एक concern रहेगा हमेशा whether in education there should be a standardization or there should be an individual liberty. When I sit as a student at this age in Norway, Finland, and Denmark and a couple of other countries and other places, I would, with a folding hands, make a request to the entire global fraternity, and in G20 also, we will give the same appeal. Let there be a less evaluation, less exams, and more creativity and curiosity, and that everything collaborative, we have to bring it together. Arpit, Aarti ma'am has already given task to you and me. Let's make an action plan and send it to her before she changes her mind. We got to move on together, both of us, and we had to take on. With folding hands, deep gratitude and thanks to all of you. Thank you very much for such a wonderful deliberation. This particular video, after necessary editing, we will send to the Ministry of Education, we'll send to the PMO, we'll send to the Niti Aayog, and each one of you didn't get much of time. Should you wish to come any day to talk about your organization in detail through the lens of Arpit Dugar, we'll take the journey forward. My deep gratitudes, thanks, namaskar,